Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Jane C. Phillips. I'm Pam Myers with Pam Myers Social Media. Jane is a paranormal investigator, a medical intuitive, and a psychic medium. And today's conversation is going to be reflections on the past year, maybe longer. So good morning, Jane. How are you?
I'm good. So, I know there's a lot that's bombarding us this first part of the year. January is always the time that you get inundated with, you better plan, you've got to get your ducks in a row, and you make New Year's resolutions and all of that. And it's tricky. We're just getting really hit with the whole planning thing. And so I'll talk about that in a little bit. But I wanted to, it's been a rough couple of years, and just about the time we're out of the woods, they name another part of the virus that we need to be afraid of. And so, and I'm not necessarily pro-vax. I'm not anti. I think it's a personal choice. So whatever your personal choice is, I support that. And I also want to support, because I saw a lot of this past year with my clients, and they kept coming back, even though they might be have different views on what's going on than I, because I support your view is valid for you. So, but just keep in mind that over this last year, we've lost more loved ones. We now have a different version of the virus to be worried about. We're not sure about the politics. That whatever decisions or things that have confronted you this past year is, I just want people to not operate from fear. So not make your decisions, and I can use, because COVID's such a big deal, I can use, I'm afraid that if I don't get vaccinated, I'm going to get COVID and die. I'm afraid if I get vaccinated, it's going to impair my immune system, and I'm going to be weaker forever, right? Whatever it is. So my biggest sort of reflection, because we've had 2 years of being bombarded with scary news, is to try to do your best to stay out of the fear of it. What can you do if you have a fear, right? And to think about what it is, the whole helpless thing. Or I have a client who is virtual, but the business guidelines, because I don't watch the news all the time, are you're either vaccinated or you're testing every week, right? And so she's never in the office, she's on Zoom, and they're still requiring her to be tested every week, and she's resisting that. And that it's common sense. I'm not sure how you're going to get the virus through a Zoom call, right? But and she may not be able to do anything about that. I'm not sure. And so there's a piece of me. I was writing a friend who's coming into town. She wants me to find some accommodations here in Santa Fe where I live. And she's chosen not to be vaccinated. I said, I have a lot of my friends are pro-vax. So I'm going to have to see whether I can find you a spot. You may end up in a hotel while you get settled in here to do some healing work. And so we had a conversation back and forth from that. But her fear, because she lost a brother and a mother this last year, is she's the fear of death. And so it's easy to equate, and a couple of things she said to me were, I know this guy got vaccinated and his heart failed 2 weeks later, right? So it's sort of like we can connect the dots. People do it with the Bible, they do it with the Quran, they do it with everything, because whatever happens, you create your own meaning for it. And so you can, if you believe something is not beneficial, then you will find all the ways to prove it. And if you think things are beneficial, you're going to prove that. And so I don't know where I'm going with all of this necessarily, except for in reflection, because we've had more time alone still,
Right.
I think it's important to sort of evaluate your values. And also, the piece that I'm finding that's more prevalent in the last 2 years, because we're on social media more, because we're not out and about, we can go down all sorts of bunny rabbit trails and holes regarding the politics, regarding the vaccine, regarding health in general. And it's easier to get manipulated by the media, very easy.
Right.
And so what I've been offering to friends who will listen, and it's an offering, it's never a suggestion, it's just an offering, because an offering you can put your hand on and I say, would you like some of this? And someone says, no, I'm allergic, or no. So it doesn't make me wrong. It just means I offered you something and you didn't want it. But an offering for all of you out there is your mental health is super important during these times, just hugely important. So the less news you watch, the less social media you do. I teaching one client about hugging trees, and she's not in New Mexico, and we have to be careful about hugging trees here because there's usually cactus right next to it. So you have to be sensitive because we're not built like the birds that can stand on it. But this person lives in South Carolina, and she thought that was the weirdest thing ever. And I said, when you hug a tree, you're connecting with nature, and you don't just like do the pat thing and say, okay, I hugged a tree. You actually hug it for like 5 minutes and let nature take all your angst and anxiety and worry, and just imagine that the tree's grabbing it and sticking it down into the earth and the roots and recycling it. I had a tree in Minnesota before I moved here that it had a face on it. So it was like my tree and I named it. I don't remember what, but being out in nature is really supportive for us, getting away from the electronics. Some people are EMF, electromagnetic frequency sensitive. I'm not. It's not that it doesn't affect me, but it doesn't make me ill. I have clients that get ill from it. So getting away from the electronics, being outside in nature, even if the only thing you can do because you're not very mobile is, sit in a chair outside bundled up if it's cold and just breathe in some fresh air. My big thing for all of us is to step away from the bombardment of information that's coming through our televisions, through our social media, and all of the opinions, and step away enough so that you can really start thinking about what's important to you. Because the things that we're being bombarded with, for the most part, you have no control over. You have control over whether you have a vaccine or not, and you have a control over whether you decide to go outside or not, and you have a control over what you watch. But if you're hearing things that make you feel helpless, and the only thing that you want to do with the information is tell a bunch of other people that they ought to know about this. That's the biggest thing I see in conspiracy or non-conspiracy, right? Everyone wants me to know, the latest numbers on COVID. And that's not important to me. There's nothing I can do about it. I can do about me personally. So I'm just offering for everybody who might be willing to take this as an offering, try a week with no social media, or at least try a day. Try to turn the TV off and not be aware of anything that's going on in the world, and see how you feel.
Right.
See if your anxiety's better, if your worry's less. And the other thing that I reflected on, when we're focused on things that seem out to harm us in some way, it takes our attention off ourselves personally. we don't really get to reflect on what we're doing to help ourselves.
Right. Because our minds get so cluttered, right? Our minds get so cluttered with all of that stuff that's around you. And when you said, I know we mostly want to listen to Jane talk, but I wanted to
Oh,
make
this
a
is important.
comment. Yeah, when you talked about hugging a tree, I just got goosebumps over how that could make you feel grounded, right? Just take you back. Um, just to just narrow your focus so that you're really hearing and feeling what's around you instead of being impacted by everything that's coming at you.
Yeah, it's that's right. It's a physical private moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I tell you that you need to start meditating, you have to actually get out of your head and get calm enough. You may not be able to do that. But if you have a physical thing that you can do, I mean, and you're not the person that releases things by running or taking whatever walks or whatever, nature's job on this planet is to create balance. And I learned that I follow a gal named Michelle Smallwright who has paralandra-ltd.com. And I use her procedures, some of them, to create balance in the work I'm doing with individual clients and with houses that I'm clearing and all of that. And she's the one that taught me that that's nature's job.
Mm-hmm.
We're operating, you and I, from our ego all the time. You know, it's directing us, and that's part of who we are, and that's not wrong. Right. It's just that it creates out of balance for us. And so the whole hugging the tree thing, taking a moment to just be and not have to fix anything, and not have to pass the news along that the sky is falling, whichever direction. Because if that's all you're doing is just sharing information, you're not doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
You're not creating anything. And I have a thing about that. The story that I tell, and I've said before probably, is I like picking up trash. I think it's reflective for me. When I first started, because I noticed it all. I noticed there was a guy who left he was obviously homeless. He left his sleeping bag near the park I walk in. And for 2 weeks I walked by and I said, well, when is he going to come and pick it up? Because doesn't he need his sleeping bag? And finally, I just picked it up and took it home and threw it away. Oh. And that started me. I said, I'm waiting for other people to do a job that I'm willing to do. I'm willing to do it instead of just being pissed off. And I eventually worked on a park near where I was living for 5 years while I was there. And there were homeless people in there. And I kept thinking, they're going to pick up underneath the trees. Nope, too drunk, forgot, where they left, whatever. And so I started treating it as like, oh my gosh, you were watching the game, you had too many beers, you trashed the living room, and then you went to bed. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, okay, so what? So I started picking up under the trees. I was nervous at first, but I thought I could tell a bunch of people, I could try and call the city, I could do all this stuff, but it was stuff I could handle myself, so I did. And then when I cleared enough stuff out, I couldn't get the shopping cart out of the Arroyo, I couldn't get this flat screen TV out, and I couldn't get the rugs out because they were in the middle of a 3-acre park. So then I called the city and said, I've done everything I can. I got the windshield, the broken windshield out by myself, but I couldn't get. And they said, oh, and because I'd already been doing things, my karma maybe had changed. And they came out and I directed them and they weren't happy. I said, well, the shopping cart's over there in the middle of the Arroyo. So they got that out. And I said, and the flat screen TV is here at the end of a runoff. And then way over on the other side are these rugs. And I made them take them out. And and so, you know, I could go on and on about that, but right now I've moved to a new place. I'm in town in my tiny house again, and I'm cleaning up the arroyos because I'm not sitting there thinking, why isn't somebody picking up their stuff, or why is everybody making a mess? It's their job to do it. Well, it is, but because I don't mind, if it's something you don't mind doing, then throw the resentment away and just pick it up.
Right.
And things in my area are getting neater because I'm ahead of the, if there's a beer can, there are not 12 of them now. There's just that one, and I pick it up as I walk. So I think my big thing is for you to reflect on last year and find out maybe where you got caught up in things and trying to push your agenda on somebody else when it might be something that you can do something about. Mine happens to be trash. Have no idea why it is. It's relaxing. My dog gets more time outdoors when I pause to clear an area. And I have a truck, so I can, some of these places I can make a pile because I can't carry it all. And I'll drive back with my truck and throw it in and then get it into the trash somewhere. So anyway, just to think about what you can do, reflect on last year, the things, and if you're all caught up in things not working right, figure out what you can do to make it work right. Hug a tree, get outside, turn off your TV, turn off your computer, hide your tablets for your kids. I have a friend of mine that her son was acting up, and I cleared his energy field, and she said, oh, he's so much better. And they started acting up again. And I said, it would be beneficial if you could get them off their tablets for a bit. And so she put the tablets away for a whole week, and they started exploring, taking walks outside. I was giving her some ideas of things that we used to do as kids that kids aren't taught. I said, do your boys know how to make paper airplanes that fly? She said, I never thought of that. I said, how about snowflakes for your tree? You know, can you teach them some of those things? Kids nowadays don't, if you have children, they don't have, they don't know how to use a ruler. They don't know how to use a measuring cup. Not all of yours. But the basic skills that you and I grew up with, because we didn't have an internet that could point us in the right direction, we had to learn to read a map.
Right.
And so just do some reflection on last year as you can. Cut down on the media and understand that the things that you're avoiding and you're not addressing because you're sidetracked by other things will come up this year. I am getting, what I'm seeing from some clients already is that they're having tough dreams, which are basically fears and things coming up that they just need to let go of, and thought processes. So be aware that this first half of the year, we're still going to be dealing probably with the COVID thing. It's lessening, but it's still there. And start taking a look at yourself and seeing what things that you're avoiding. And maybe there are some steps you can take to start working on your energy so that you have a better year.
Enough time to focus on positive, on moving forward in a positive way rather than negative, right? Yeah.
And take the time. There's a guy named Stephen Covey. He wrote 7 Habits of Highly Successful People or something like that.
Great book.
But one of the things that he said, he gave an example of somebody, 2 people sawing down a tree, and one guy, 2 trees, each had their own tree, and one guy kept disappearing and coming back, and his tree came down first. And the guy he says, I've been working all day, and how come your tree's down first? Where the heck were you going? You know, slackered, all that. He says, well, I was going back to sharpen my saw. So the time that you take off is your saw sharpening. It allows you, hugging the tree gives you just a little bit of space to maybe be more creative or come up with a solution to a problem that you haven't been able to resolve.
Mhm.
And, you know, I need to listen to this myself. That's probably why I'm talking about it. Is like, how much time are we taking off, Pam, to just think, oh, we have to push through or we have to pass this message on, it's urgent. What if we
Right.
just stepped back and thought about it, hugged a tree and thought, how urgent is this message that everyone has to know about it? How
Right.
urgent is it that I get this project done when everything I'm doing around it doesn't work? You know, I'm running into roadblocks. Maybe I just need to step back instead of push through. So I wish you a very happy new year, everybody. And know that we're going to get through this. As things are going to resolve themselves if you keep your focus on yourself and on your own personal growth, and understanding that everybody does not have your prescription, your glass prescription. So much as you'd love them to wear your glasses, they're still not going to see what you see,
Right.
because we've all had different life experiences and we're wired the way we're wired. So be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up for things that maybe don't get done, and focus on things you can do. I clean arroyos and parks besides doing energy work. And I like to organize. I've helped people organize, but that's my thing. That doesn't have to be yours. You might end up wanting to volunteer somewhere, or teach people, somebody, a skill,
Mhm.
or the things you notice are the things you are being called to notice. And those are the things that you probably can contribute to, as long as it's not just passing information along.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yep. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, everybody, for listening and commenting today. We hope you enjoyed this segment, and we're moving this to an every other week for the time being. So we will see you on January the 20th, correct? Yeah.
Yep.
All right. And you can hear all Jane's podcasts on anywhere that you listen to podcasts. So thank you so much for listening.
Okay.